Welcome to day 34 of the Gospel of John Book Club. And in today's reading, Jesus doesn't rush to heal his friend, and his friend dies.
All right, so we are in John 11, reading verses 1 to
16.
Okay. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. This is the Mary who later poured the expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and wiped them with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was sick, so the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, "Lord, your dear friend is very sick." But when Jesus heard about it, he said, "Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this." So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Finally, he said to his disciples, "Let's go back to Judea." But his disciples objected. "Rabbi," they said, "only a few days ago the people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going there again?" Jesus replied, "There are 12 hours of daylight every day. During the day, people can walk safely. They can see because they have the light of this world. But at night, there is danger of stumbling because they have no light." Then he said, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him up." The disciples said, "Lord, if he is sleeping, he will soon get better." They thought Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant Lazarus had died. So he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there, for now you will really believe me. Come, let's go see him." Thomas, nicknamed the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let's go too and die with Jesus."
Yeah, what a ending to that excerpt.
Let's go die with Jesus.
I love how Thomas is like a ride. He's like ride or die, like I
I
think,
used to think it was Peter, but I'm Thomas.
well, yeah, I mean, I think Peter was similar, but I think in this moment we see a side of Thomas, and later on, like Thomas is one of the ones who, after the resurrection, actually is unsure that it's Jesus who had been resurrected. He's like, okay, if it's really you, Jesus, like, let me, where are your wounds? Where are the wounds from the crucifixion?
Oh, let me fix that. Peter would be fighting.
Oh,
He was like, "No, we're not gonna die. We're gonna fight."
Yeah. But they all deserted Jesus in the end, or when he went to the cross, and But I think it's beautiful just seeing, the ride or die attitude of Thomas in this moment. He's like, okay, they're ready to stone you, Jesus, but if you say let's go back, we're going back and we're gonna die with you.
We're dying today.
And they had no clue what was happening. But I love his attitude, and I wonder, do we have an attitude that serves Jesus in that way? Like, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Except die.
That's how we say it. That's how we say it. And sometimes we don't actually say it with
we don't
words.
need to be martyrs. They're ready to die.
Yeah.
We need to live.
And that's our attitude. But I think, it's very few that are necessarily called to, death for the name of Jesus. But I think we're all called definitely to serve Jesus, to serve Christ. And
to die in a way.
And to die to ourselves.
Absolutely.
But I wonder, are we, here, do we have an attitude that's like, whatever you want me to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. And if you say, hey, that job that I'm in, you want me to let it go to do a job that pays lesser money, I'm doing it. You want me to serve more in the church? You want me to use my gifts and my talents, spend some hours there? You want me to give more? I'm doing it.
It definitely takes some time to get there. I don't want people to feel intimidated, like, "Oh my gosh, that's not me, so I'm not a true sheep."
Yeah, and I don't think it necessarily determines whether or not we are his sheep. However,
I think some people can get really intimidated,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm not there yet, so that means there's something wrong with me." And it takes time to get there. Just learn to trust God with the smaller things, where it's God calling and it's Jesus pointing you in this direction.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes easier when God keeps moving you in certain places.
Yeah.
So where your nose like, this is where Jesus is going, so I'm definitely going.
Yeah. And I love that you pointed out, because I think that's great, because I do, following Jesus, there shouldn't, we shouldn't be burdened. by following Jesus. It should be a blessing. And I think though, when we do feel him leading and prompting us in certain areas, the longer we take, the more we miss out on a blessing. And I think, that's kind of what we want to emphasize. But it does take time, because look at all the other disciples. None of them were like, okay, Thomas, let's go.
They're probably looking at him like,
bro, shh, I'm trying to stay here.
Let's talk him into not going.
Right. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. So, that's definitely interesting. I love this though. Jesus, he waits. He delays his going.
Yes, we saw this with the blind man. But this is a what he was talking about. He was like, who sinned that he's like this? And it's like, no. This is happening in this moment, so that I may be glorified, so you would know that I am truly the Son of Man.
Yeah.
So Jesus is deliberately looking for these opportunities to show himself in an extravagant way, because clearly it's going to need some extravagant things to persuade these people.
And many of them still weren't convinced.
I mean, they didn't even have running water.
Yeah. But this was a miracle like no other.
Like Jesus is this living water.
Jesus' friend, Lazarus, right, is dying. And he's like, let's give him a couple days. Let's wait till he's dead. He's like, let's wait till he's dead. Yeah, and then he shows up on the scene, and just so he can perform the resurrection. And I think sometimes in our lives, like, there are things that Jesus wants to remove or strip from our lives, and we try so hard to hold on to dear life and not let go of the thing that Jesus wants to resurrect in our lives. And I think it's a very beautiful illustration of the way we sometimes live, because we think, oh no, I remember there was one time in my life where I was about to get evicted. When I first moved to New York City, the rent was crazy high. I had this apartment. I was running my own business in the music industry. And when I got to New York, I had plenty of money. I spent it all, and I didn't make any new money. And I came to New York expecting to make at least a year's worth of wages in my business, and none of that money came through. And basically I was facing eviction. And there was a part of me that held onto that apartment for as long as I could. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep fighting it. I'm going to just keep fighting it in court. And I'm going to just keep fighting it. And I kept going. And eventually I just felt the Lord saying, let it go. I got you. You're going to fall, but I'm going to catch you. And I remember just letting go. And sure enough, I did get evicted. But it was beautiful that my sister and her husband, they had gotten this apartment, and they had plenty of space in the apartment. They had a couple extra rooms for me and my son. I was a single dad at the time, and we were able to move right in. And they had a car to come help us move and everything. And so I fell, but I didn't even feel any impact on the ground.
No, I'm happy that you're saying that, right? Because someone else may think, that's terrible. Yeah. You were sleeping in your sister's apartment. You lost your apartment. So for someone else who is not necessary, because sometimes I think we misunderstand what God's catching looks like. Sometimes we feel like, oh, God's gonna catch me. There's gonna be a miraculous check in the mail for just thousands of dollars.
Right. And I thought that that's why I was holding on. I'm like, if I just keep holding on, that check is gonna show up. And honestly, I had a deal that we were working on that would have given me enough money to catch up on my rent. The deal just wouldn't go through.
I'm so happy because for God, it's like, bro, you have a roof over your head. Yeah. You're eating.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like, no, God, this is whack. And God was like, this is a blessing. So I think we can get really caught up a little bit if we start to keep in our minds what we expect that God should do. Yeah. It's like, no, God, if it's a true blessing, then it's going to look like this. Yeah. And God is like, no.
Just trust me.
If it's a true blessing, then you're going to trust me, regardless of what happens, and know that you're going to be all right.
Trust me and keep following me. And I think what happened out of that is that I began to follow Jesus even more. That was really the beginning of me just starting to really fully just give my life over to Jesus and stop trying to control everything that was happening. And I eventually just fully just pulled out of the music industry, and I was putting out my resume, trying to find a job. I was trying to go to places, trying to get retail jobs in Dunkin' Donuts and Rite Aid. What? And nobody would hire me.
That is crazy.
Nobody would hire me. I got evicted, and just nobody would hire me. But God used that season of my life to bring me into a whole new career path that I never, ever would have imagined that began to prepare me to be a pastor.
But did you give up?
No, I mean,
Did you have a point where it's like, forget it? Well, where you're like, Thomas, like, we just gonna die young.
Well, yeah, I think that was the moment I'll be like, listen, Jesus, I'm following you wherever it goes. I'm going to let go of this apartment. And if I end up on the street with my son, it is what it is.
Thomas like, we're just going to die, y'all. Let's just do it. It's interesting, though, because even in Thomas is saying, we're going to die with Jesus, it's clear, though, that he's really not paying attention to what Jesus is saying. Because Jesus is like, he's dead, but we're going to go resurrect him. And he's like, we're going to die, y'all. Let's just go die with Jesus. We came this far. And let's let it go. Let's just fall back. And so at this point, they're open to anything now. Like, we're just going to go see what this man going to do.
Yeah, and sometimes when we hold on, we miss the real miracle that God wants to do because of our fear. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope somebody's getting something out of this today. But like I said, in that season of my life, I pressed in more than ever before in following Jesus. And it was an amazing time of transformation and just learning to trust God in just radical ways, just crazy. Okay, this doesn't make sense type of a way. And he just continued to just show up. And I started to learn what he meant when he says, walk by faith, not by sight.
So don't invent what the blessing should look like.
Don't invent it.
Don't, because you'll be disappointed.
Do what you feel like he's leading you to do.